Hello and welcome to the Nadia podcast. I'm Nadia Cater, and today I am joined with my producer, Jamie Trujillo.
Hello.
Hey, Jamie. How are you today?
I am doing well. It's a beautiful day.
Oh, yeah. It's spring.
Yes. Spring has sprung.
Spring has sprung. We're shedding our winter coats and we're letting the sun just wash all over us. It just feels better. It feels good to be outside. Okay, so we have a special kind of resource episode today. And our resource episode is tools for admin. So, Jamie, this was something that you and I kind of came up with in our constant podcast meetings and talks. Let's talk a little bit about why we wanted to cover this kind of episode.
Yeah. So for me, I think a lot of it stemmed from being an administrator for many years and thinking about all of the tools that I've had to use. And we've done other resource episodes about resources for instructors, which is very important. But I think that having something for administrators is equally important. So that's, where I came from in thinking about this episode.
Absolutely. Where I'm coming from is a similar realm, but frankly, I feel like admin are kind of left to the wayside when we do professional development, when we do resources. Like I just think of going to conferences, going to teachers' institutes. Well, I mean, teacher is focused on teachers, right? But It's just there's so much out there for instructors, and that's not a bad thing. It's wonderful. It's just I feel like we underestimate how much tools admin do need and use regularly, and we kind of take that for granted.
Exactly. And I really appreciate having this opportunity to just share the tools that, in this case, you and I have used over the years in our administrative duties.
Oh, yeah. This is not exclusive. These are not the only tools that admin use, but it's just that you and my experience and what we used and what we think could be helpful for other people, for other admin.
Exactly.
So we have a list here. So why don't we just get the ball rolling? What's the first tool that you want to talk about, Jamie?
The first tool I want to talk about is forms. And there are two tools that I use specifically for forms. Now, coming from the point of view of an administrator, there are a lot of reasons to use forms, a lot. And so the first one that I ever used was Google Forms. It's still a tool that I absolutely swear by. I love Google Forms. I love its functionality. I love that it's free and it is integrated within the suite of Google tools. And then the other one I want to talk about is Jotform, but I'll get to that here in a little bit. Jotform and Google Forms can be used for a lot of the same purposes. In my role specifically as NMEA Executive Director, I've used both for various kinds of registration forms, whether it's for the Teachers Institutes or for the annual conference, any kind of workshops or trainings. Propel uses Google Forms for all of its registration forms for training from the back of the room or teaching skills that matter. As many of you know, Propel uses primarily Google tools. So Google Forms is a big part of that. The advantage to Jotform, and for those of you that have never used Jotform, it has a free version and then it has various paid tiers like many platforms do. And even if you've never used it, you've probably seen it because I have been using Jotform for the demand membership form, which is on our website. I've also used it for the Teachers Institute's registrations. And I also worked with Sandy Myers from Mountain Plains Adult Education Association to create the annual conference registration form for MPAEA. And so I have gotten a lot more savvy with using Jotform, especially over the last year. And one big advantage that Jotform has that, as far as I know, and of course, Google makes updates all the time, so this might be something I've missed recently, but as far as I know, Google doesn't have a system where you can integrate a payment platform like PayPal, and Jotform does. And Jotform integrates with many different kinds of payment platforms. So a person can fill out the form and immediately go and pay for whatever it was that they registered for. And it's very easy to set that up in Jotform and connect it to whatever payment platform you use, and it will just automatically happen. MPAA was really the first registration form that I learned how to do that. And it was, again, fairly simple. So NMEA does have that for its registration page for the Teachers Institute registration, all through Jotform, really specifically for that reason, for that payment platform. If you're going to be doing any kind of fundraiser, and we were even talking recently about how there are many adult data and literacy programs that do these large fundraising events. If you have a fundraising event, you can have your registration form on Jotform, and the tickets can be bought directly from there. So definitely something you want to use if you have a payment platform. Very briefly, I've also heard of Zeffy, Zeffy, and this is a platform that does not charge fees. So it's for nonprofits. So any program that's not a nonprofit, this wouldn't apply to them. But for nonprofits who are doing ticketing events or registrations, Zeffy will give the registrants the option to pay those fees. But if they don't, Zeffy still will not charge a fee to the organization. So I have not really played with that, but if anybody is interested, especially if you are a nonprofit and you want to maximize your funding, I recommend giving it a shot. I've played with it a little bit. It seemed to me that the functionality was too limited for what we were trying to do for NMEA, but it might work for a fundraising event. Absolutely. Now, as far as other functions for Google Forms, I do have a lot more experience with Google Forms. Anytime I have a poll, so I want to set up a meeting and I want to see what everybody's availability is, I am more likely to use Google Forms than even Poll Everywhere or Doodle, because it's easier for me to see that way. It's really a personal preference. I know a lot of people like Doodle, but I use Google Forms for polls and for voting. For those of you who are the recipients of my many, many emails every week, you will know that I send out Google Forms all the time. Whether you're voting for bylaw changes or new board members or awards, it's going to be a Google form. So I find that very easy. And then outside of what I do with NMEA, when I was the program director for the Albuquerque Adult Learning Center, I would use Google Forms for a lot of my administrative forms. So for example, if I wanted to have a place where all of my staff could do a supply order request, they can fill that out in Google Forms. Time logs, attendance sheets, student attendance sheets. For a time, we did have attendance sheets done digitally so that they were time-stamped. That's another great thing about Google Forms, is that the timestamp stamps to the second. So you can see when they sign in, when they sign out. That's what we did for our students.
Well, I was going to say, I was thinking about time logs, and when I was teaching, it was kind of hard. It's one of those things that needs to be a routine and kind of enforced, is when my students did work outside the classroom, they would use the time log. So they would punch in when they start like a homework or other assignments and punch out when they were done. Sometimes they would forget to punch out, or sometimes they'll punch in when they're done. Like it could get a little messy, but it's one of those things where if you make it a routine, like over time, students are getting better at it. And it really did help with giving them the hours that they deserve, because they're spending hours of time doing work. And that's if your students are doing work outside the classroom.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Also, any kind of student and staff surveys. whether it's end of semester surveys or student exit surveys or staff surveys. If you want to survey your staff for any reason, Google Forms is a great way to do that, as well as presentation proposals. So this is a little out of order here, but whenever we do call for presenters for any kind of conference, we also use Google Forms. It's a very simple way to get that. You can use Jotform as well. So those two in particular are just the ones that I have found to be very useful, very multifunctional. And I do want to make a plug that we do have a Tech Tuesday set of videos on advanced Google Form features. So if you're interested in getting a little bit more savvy with your Google Forms, check out the NMDELT YouTube page for the Tech Tuesday videos and look for the Google Forms videos. That's really all I have to say about Google Forms. Nadia, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add about what you've done with Google Forms.
Oh no, you've done way more than I've done. You know, for admin, it's a little different because I've used Google Forms as a teacher. And you know, of course, it's like typical quizzes or surveys. The most interesting way I've seen someone use a Google Form is I knew a teacher who would use it for their students to write essays. So that they would split up each section as like, this is the introduction, this is the body 1, body 2, and conclusion.
That's very creative. I like that.
Yeah, it's so different, but it was a way for the students to be able to divide that, like seeing that visually, and also that little descriptor of exactly what they're supposed to put there. So it's basically like a digital graphic organizer, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of digital, there are definitely perks to using Google Forms for any kind of form as opposed to a written form. Being somebody who has done data entry and who has done admin at various levels, sometimes handwriting is hard to read. And so Google Forms eliminates that. The other thing is Google Forms allows you, and so does Jotform, they allow you to set required questions. So people, you know, you don't have that space for human error so much. Of course, there might be some, but you're not going to have an instance where something is left blank that needed to be filled out. And I really love that feature.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'd like to lead the second one.
Absolutely.
So the second tool I want to talk about is Canva Pro. Canva is an it's an overall design platform. There's a free version called Free Canva, but it's pretty limited. If you're in education or you're a nonprofit, you have the option to go with Canva Pro for free. If you're, a registered nonprofit.
Yes.
Yes, or part of an education district, classroom. You have to check out how your organization fits into that. But Pro has a ton of tools and resources and access to different kinds of graphics, right? So Canva is an overall design platform. They're also an online whiteboard. They're a presentation tool. You can build designs, create designs in it. They also have docs, videos. You can use it to make Instagram stories or use it for other social media videos or graphics. Like it's so much. There's so much going on in this thing. One thing that I've been using Canva for a couple of years now because of my jobs that have been with nonprofits. We have access to Pro, and we've been using Canva just for marketing, like a lot of marketing creation. I've made a ton of flyers, and you may see basically any flyer, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, in the last couple of years that you've been sending out in the listservs has been made with Canva.
I cannot think of many flyers that have not been made in Canva. And if they were, it was not made by one of us.
Yeah, so most recently, the announcements and the flyers for the Teachers Institutes, as well as the NMEA fact sheet that was handed out during Adult Ed Day, were both made in Canva. If anyone has seen the Propel, which just for those who don't know, Propel is the professional learning system, right? That poster that was handed out to programs and that was sent out in emails, the Propel offerings and what they, how they fit into these different themes, and also just a brief outline of what each portion of Propel does, what teams do what, that was made in Canva. I worked on that. The Adult Ed Day t-shirt from February 2024, Jamie, you used Canva for that, right?
I did. I simplified the NMEA logo so that it could all be one color, just that white color for the t-shirt in Canva. Yes.
Yeah. If anyone has ever seen my business card or any Propel business cards, Jamie's NMEA business card, those were both designed in Canva.
Yes.
So beautiful colors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one thing that I've heard you say many times as we say, wow, Nadia, this is a great design for anything, flyer, business card, all of that. Your common response is, I used a template. And so they have tons of templates. Granted, you did a lot of work to those templates, changed the colors, changed the orientation of things. But what I love about Canva is that you can start with that template and then work from it. So you're not just starting from scratch most of the time. And for people like me that are not design savvy or graphically,
gifted.
We're not graphically gifted. It's great to have that starting point. I love that.
I'm not graphically gifted. I am not a digital designer. I am someone who just uses templates and can use them well. And a big part of that is from Canva, just playing around in Canva. I've learned a lot just by doing. In addition to all of that, Canva also makes videos. We use Canva to make the podcast videos. So the videos that you see on YouTube, even though it is a static image, that image was put into Canva. Right? That yes. Podcast logo was made in Canva. Our videos adding music and stuff like that, also that put it into Canva. We also, all of our Tech Tuesday videos have, if not partially, but all use Canva designs. So even when there's screen share, which we use something else, we use a tool called ScreenPal to do a screen recording. We'll put the screen recording in Canva to add graphics, to add moving animations, to add music. Canva Video with Pro, you have access to music that you can put into your project. So yeah, if you ever seen a Tech Tuesday video, that's Canva. Logos. I've made a ton of logos and focus on design with Canva. The recent Albuquerque Adult Learning logo I made in Canva when I was working for them. The NM Delp logo, the latest one, made in Canva. Presentations, I can't use Google Slides anymore. And this is, I'm speaking just for myself, okay? So if anyone, I know other people don't have the same feeling, but how simple it is to manipulate, especially multiple objects in Canva to a presentation. I could make a presentation in Canva twice as fast as using Google Slides. There's also more variety in images and fonts and moving parts.
That's what I was going to say is the options for animations are very simple with Canva. And so I definitely like that functionality. I am overall a person who still clings to Google Slides. I think I've kicked PowerPoint to the curb at this point, but I like having those options though. I like having the Canva option for depending on what I need to do.
Absolutely. I just like the so much options and way more than Google Slides. PowerPoint does still have a lot of options.
And it's increased, they're trying to compete with Google, I think. So
absolutely. But yeah, I love making presentations in Canva. I feel like for me, it's just so much easier. I just remember trying to move multiple images at the same time in Google Slides. And for some reason I couldn't, or it was just not moving in the way I wanted to. And I was just so angry. I was like, forget it. I'm moving to Canva. Why did I deviate? enough. And and then doing the same thing in Canva, it was so simple, and I was like, I'm so enraged.
And you were hooked from that point.
Yes. So in addition to just the logos and the presentations, in Canva, you could design what's known as a brand kit. So brand kits are exactly what it sounds like. It's whatever your branding is, and it will have all of that: fonts, colors, logos, other images that you use regularly. You can save in Canva, and it makes our Delt videos, like our Tech Tuesday videos, so much easier, because you can just select the brand kit and it'll give you the colors and the fonts that you chose all right in that same spot. And it just makes it so much easier to keep building different flyers, videos, whatever you're doing. It's just always, it's saved in the brand kit, and it's way easier. I make employee handbooks in Canva. I've made a couple now for different, different orgs I worked for. And an employee handbook, really just having all of this central space for employees to just pick up on stuff, right? Policies, how to request time off, doing your timesheet, who you're reporting to, what are the different roles here? Just having that all in one space can be really helpful, especially with onboarding. And just for reference, right? For employees that maybe don't remember something that their supervisor told them, a year ago, but it's in the handbook, right? Certificates. When we at the Delt team did the Google Intensive, I made the certificates in Canva. They were all saved. There's some really great certificate templates that I only really manipulated very minorly. So the templates are great. There's so many different kinds, and it's just really great to be able to just select one template and just, add your brand kit to it and make it very simple. GIFs. You can make GIFs in Canva. You can create QR codes to add to your flyer or your marketing material. And finally, slideshow videos. So of course, like graduation, recognition, retirement, all that's used in Canva. You just upload any images or video, and you can just plop it down. Did you make the graduation video for the Albuquerque Adult Learning Center 2023?
I did, yes.
In Canva.
In Canva. So I did that in 2022 and 2023.
Oh, okay. So 2 years.
And what's great, especially for Canva Pro, is you can upload music, or you can use the music that they have. They have a lot of different options for music that you can put as the background in your video. So you have unlimited options there. I can't say enough to how easy it is to make a slideshow video or any kind of video in Canva.
Absolutely. In addition to all of the features, Canva has a pretty robust kind of learning tool in there where it's just called Canva Design School. So there's like a tab when you first open Canva, and there's the Canva blog that has all these articles and resources about using Canva and creating and step-by-step guides so you can create stuff. But also they have their design school, and you just doing a few of those tutorials in their design school really just helped me understand how to manipulate images and how to use the templates to the best of my ability. Canva also does something called Canva Challenge. So if you sign up, they'll send you these like promotional emails. One of the promotional emails is Canva Design Challenge, where they'll give you a prompt for social media, and you will have to create something based on that prompt. Like, for example, like Valentine's Day, they had like creating a Valentine's Day card or something. And just having those little fun activities, the goal ultimately is really just to flex that design muscle. And I did a couple of those, and I think that really did help me just figure out design basics in that. And I'm guilty of this, of using the term like good design or bad design. And I feel like, using those terms are very loaded. What's good and what's bad is very loaded. But I think moving away from that and specifically talking about what is effective design and what's not as effective. Because design in itself, what it comes down to is design is visual communication. And when you put it like that, a design is visual communication. So what are you communicating to your audience, right? What are you trying to get at in this little design challenge, this one Instagram post? What do you want people to pay attention to? What do you want to get out of that? And I think when you put that mindset into other designs, your logos, your flyers, your email blasts, right? Your presentations, think of it in those terms. What are you trying to communicate? And when you put it like that, it's more like, okay, what works for people, what doesn't? So like an overloaded design, the auditory equivalent of that would be if you have 6 people talking about different things at the same time to one person. Imagine what that does. What would they get out of that? Right?
I used to be so bad at doing that. I always thought the more images, the better. And so that actually is a very helpful rule of thumb. What are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to say? And I definitely try to keep that in mind now.
Absolutely. Also, they have infographics. You want to create an infographic to remind legislators of what your program does and how helpful it's been to the community? Use Canva.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. So we want to switch gears a little bit and go into some tools that you may be familiar with. I say you as the audience. You may be familiar with, which is just some Google tools. At Propel, at Nemea, we primarily use Google Suite or Google Workspace. So that's kind of our focus today, is we're not really talking so much about Microsoft, but Google, because that's just what we use. And the first one here is Google Docs. So Jamie, can you tell us about what you use Docs for?
Yes. And when it comes to Google tools, Docs, they're one of the more common tools that I use. So any kind of meeting agenda or meeting notes are put in Docs. And as many of you know, Docs are shareable. They can be edited in real time. You don't have to send the doc back and forth and wait for other people to make edits. They can all happen. One thing that I've started doing, especially recently, now that I attend a lot of Nemea related meetings, specifically committee meetings, and I head up some of those, I'll create the agendas, and the agenda becomes the meeting notes page. And I can share that doc with every person who's attending. And depending on how you want to do it, you have options. You have different sharing options. So I could share it as a view-only document, or I can share it as an editable document, and multiple people can put notes in at the same time. And that helps to make sure that you get as accurate of notes as possible that, of course, follow the agenda. So these things are living files for you. They will change and evolve, and then you don't have to worry about sending an updated version because everybody will have the updated version. So I definitely use Docs for agendas and meeting notes, and I've gotten really into using their templates. So if you've never used a Google Docs template, or for any Google tool, really, a sheet or a form, or even a Google Slides presentation, their templates are very good. So I like the visual, the colors, the fonts. I like all of that, the way that they're set up. And so I'll use different ones for different meetings, because then I can look at an agenda and just visually it's different than the others. And that'll help trigger, this is, the meeting that I'm trying to, build this agenda for. So I really do like their templates a lot. And whether we use templates or not, sometimes, for example, the Propel team, the coordinator team, we have, and now even the consultant team as well, so the full Propel team, we have running notes. So we keep all of our meeting notes on one document. Yes, that can and does lead to a lot of scrolling, but it also keeps everything in one place, and you're not searching for notes from a particular meeting, especially if you're not sure. For example, someone might ask, okay, I think a couple of meetings ago we brought this up, and we might not remember which meeting it was, but we can scroll a lot more quickly than going through multiple documents. And so we'll just have those running notes. And depending on how long your notes pages get for every meeting, that may or may not work for you, but it definitely works for us. So, that's primarily, at least now, what I use Docs for. And, being an administrator for a local program, I used Docs for again, same thing, agendas and notes, but writing policies. We had the policies in Google Docs.
That's funny that you mentioned that, though. It's because that's what was on my mind. Like, one of my favorite functionalities of Google Docs is so simple. It's the comment tool. And the reason why is because I can highlight just a portion, a word, a letter, a sentence, and assign it. So like when you're doing policy, you can add comments. Does this make sense? We have to add this link, or you can even assign it to a specific person. Like I've done that with you many times. Like, after meetings, it would be like, okay, so after this meeting, between now and the next time, Jamie has to do this blah thing, right? And then I could just highlight what the action item is, comment, and assign to Jamie. So Jamie gets an email reminder, hey, you have to do this thing.
Yes, that's so helpful, because a lot of times you'll leave a meeting going, I said I was going to do X, Y, and Z, and now I can't remember what I said I was going to do. And of course, if you're taking minutes, somebody's going to see that, but then you have to go through all of the minutes as opposed to having something assigned to you and it's right there highlighted for you.
Also, if you don't have action items at the end of your meetings, try to include that. It would make
Yes.
action items make the meeting more memorable.
They do.
And action oriented, very useful. This interview will continue on the next part of this episode. Thank you for listening to the Nemea podcast.